The theme or the topic of this video is similar or related to what I talked about in the last intermediate video, the first intermediate video. It's about planning and convenience. In the last video, I compared smartphones and dumb phones. I talked about the differences between smartphones and dumb phones. And one part of that difference is that smartphones allow you to live without planning so much. They make a lot of things very convenient, so you don't have to think. You don't have to think through what you're going to do. You don't have to plan what you're going to do. And actually, this mindset, this idea that it's a good thing, that convenience is good, is not new. It's not something new that only started recently with smartphones. In the developed world, in the modern world, our whole economy, our whole society changed a lot in the 50s and 60s in the last century, in the 1950s, 1960s. Back then is really when the big change occurred from a society where things were quite hard, life was hard, and you had to think and plan and work, and not many things were convenient, to a society of convenience. And the reason for that, the big driver of this convenience, is cheap energy, cheap oil, and cars, automobiles, driving in cars. Because back when cars were expensive, most people couldn't afford a car. Energy was expensive. You had to plan better. You couldn't just go wherever you want. You had to work close to where you lived. You had to do everything close to where you lived. And going somewhere far away was a luxury. Even something like storing food, it's very convenient now that we have fridges. Food we buy can last a long time in the fridge, and we don't have to think as much, plan out exactly what we're going to eat and use for each meal. How long is this going to last? How long is this going to last? We still have to do that, but the room to maneuver is much larger. There's much more convenience. We can buy something and it'll last a while. We can use it when we think, I'm going to eat that. So the cheap energy that enabled the convenience of modern life with home appliances like fridges or cars, really the big characteristic they all have in common is that you don't have to plan. That's kind of what something being easier means. Not always. There's ways something can be easier because you planned it, because you thought something through, you thought, how do I do it? How do I do it well? And you planned out the steps. That makes it easier when you actually do it. But convenience is making something easy without first having to plan. You put the effort into planning to make the final thing easier. And our modern society, long before smartphones came around, is based on convenience, or striving for, wanting to get convenience, wanting to make your life more convenient. And people say that they want their lives to be easier, but really what they're talking about is more convenient, because often you can make your life easier by putting effort into planning, putting effort into organizing your home, organizing your time with a calendar or schedule, organizing things in advance makes it easier when you do them. But convenience makes it easier whatever you do. You don't have to plan. And the problem is, as we're all now seeing, nowadays people are starting to realize the downsides of these conveniences. There's been a big shift in mindset. Probably the biggest reason is because of climate change, but also pollution in general, but also the stress and other unpleasant things of modern life. A lot of people are realizing the downsides, the negatives of all these conveniences. It's super convenient to have a car with cheap fuel, cheap oil, that you can drive anywhere on lots of roads that haven't been planned very well, just roads, building roads everywhere, roads attaching to roads. But we're now realizing the negatives of this because having such convenience meant we didn't have to plan. We didn't have to plan good cities. The cities now, a lot of cities, you have to have a car if you want to get around. If you don't have a car, in a lot of places, in a lot of cities, or a lot of places where people live outside of the cities, in suburbs, it is horrible to live without a car. But you can also see cities which are well planned, and it's great to live without a car because you don't need a car. And so it's easy to live, but that easiness comes from things being planned in advance, the effort being put in beforehand to make the thing easier. Usually, when you try to skip any effort, you try to skip doing any hard work, just get the good thing without putting in any effort, there's downsides, there's negatives that maybe you don't see at first, but later on you start to see them. And that's what's happening now worldwide, globally, not just on an individual level, that we're realizing the huge problems from mental illness of stress and loneliness and isolation to frustration, people's lives being unhappy and unfulfilled because they spend so much time in cars, driving to work and back from work, or driving to the shops that are nowhere near where they live. What worries me a bit with smartphones is that maybe this all repeats itself, that a lot of people now are really excited about the future with smartphones, the future with self-driving cars, the future with all these things that they imagine will make life better, will make life easier, but better for people. And they're not wrong. And it's hard to argue against these things because with cars and the problems cars and all that convenience in the past caused, now we can look back and see in retrospect, now from 2023, we can look back into the past and see the problems. But we can't so easily see all the problems that things like self-driving cars and everyone doing everything through smartphones, no longer having to go to an office to do something or a government agency, everything online. It's good, it sounds good, but we can't see the problems that may be caused by that. One example is that a lot of people are very lonely and isolated now. A great way to solve that are the little interactions, the little social moments that you have with other people when you go to the shops, when you go to some office to give a document in, you talk to people. It's not a friendship, but it's something. And pushing everything online, it's very convenient, but for a lot of people, that's maybe removing those little chances they have every day to have social interaction. So that convenience could be preparing really big problems in the future. The other example is with plastic, another thing that's happening at the same time now, parallel to the issues with climate, is the pollution of plastic. There's so much plastic, and again, it was a matter of convenience. It was a matter of seeing cheap energy, abundant, lots of oil, so you can produce lots of plastic and package everything in plastic. Put the food in plastic, put the clothes in plastic, and then you throw that packaging away. Instead of having a glass jar that you take to the shops, fill up with grains or cereals or beans or whatever you need, bring it back to your house, eat what's inside, and then take the jar back and fill it up again. Or in the past, a lot of countries had milkmen that delivered milk, and then you'd leave the glass bottle outside. When you finished it, they'd take that, it would get reused. But the convenience of plastic packaging meant we didn't have to think about a good system to reuse things. We didn't have to plan an economy that reuses things. We just threw everything away. And that was convenience that made things much easier. But now we're paying the price for that convenience. And so I'm a bit skeptical about a lot of these ideas, these utopian ideas that people are really excited for, that will make the future so good, because I think a lot of them, like self-driving cars, are going to have a lot of negative consequences in the long run, because instead of planning our cities better, planning where we live better, with good trains and trams and other forms of public transport that are organized, that are planned to get everyone living there to where they want very efficiently, we're going to have lots and lots of self-driving cars that are convenient, but who knows what problems they'll cause. All right, I hope this video was interesting, and let me know in the comments below. Especially let me know if you can understand me well, if I'm talking clearly, if sometimes I talk too fast or too mumbled. I want to improve these videos as quick as possible. So give me all the feedback you can think of. All right, see ya.